I think one of the things that I always hear is like people have a hard time presenting because they don't know what to present. And sometimes it's really difficult. Like I get in situations where like some of the projects are too big and I'm like, I don't know what to show. There's so many things to show. But I'll give it a couple tips here. It's like, number one, I think you mentioned storytelling. Like tell us a cohesive story. Normally, even if stuff didn't linearly happen, it's good to tell it in a linear fashion. So we talked earlier about the 4Ds of design, like discovery, definition, and things like that. Try to tell it in that way. Sometimes you'll be down the road on a design, or you'll start with a design because someone said, hey, let's do some mock-ups, and then kick back to discovery. Just tell it linearly and it's normally fine. The other thing I'd get at is exactly what Kalen was saying. Like there's going to be questions. People are going to know why, how. Something that you should show is show alternates. Like what are some other alternatives that you tried? Don't show all of them. Just pick a couple of them. What people normally say to show your alternates is, what is a design or a piece of data that you did or that you received that helped you get to the next step? Those are the ones that you should show. So like if you did some sketches and helped you iterate to the next step, show those. If you tested and you got certain information, your research might have 40 pages of results, but show us the 5 results that got you to the next step, right? What did you distill from it and get to the next step? So it's really about how did you go from step to step to step, not how did you do everything, right? If you're going to want to show some of those branding elements, you can speak deeper into things that may not have questions, where it's like, hey, I want to really show that I did this research. And you can say, oh, you know what? I actually conducted this research. I wrote this research plan. I recruited these people. I was looking for these particular things, and I wrote these questions in these ways to support these business goals, right? That's how you can frame those things if you want to go deeper into certain things that people may not assume that you did. The last tip is make it very clear what you did and others did. So I actually struggle with this a lot because I don't speak this way. The way I was taught was like, hey, if you're going to speak kind of to be a leader, you include everyone. You kind of say we. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to say I for everything. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Everyone kind of struggles with this in design because we're a little bit more like trying to involve people and be empathetic.
All this damn inclusive behavior.
You have to say, I did this. This is what I did. Or people literally in debriefs when they're talking about you, they'll be like, oh, I don't know if Kalen did this work or not. Like he said, we did it. Who actually did these sketches? Yeah. And then if you want to, and if it's ways to like, if it helps you tell the story, you can pull in sketches or ideas from other designers and just credit them. Say, hey, on this process, I ran a workshop. Part of this design sprint was we all came up with sketches. Here's sketches from some of the other designers. Here's the ones that I did. We came together. Here's what the ideas were. I executed on the prototype. I took it from here. Like explain it that way so we understand what you did and what you contributed to the project. Even if it's small, that's okay. Use it to frame the story and go forward. And I think the last thing that I'll say, especially to more like budding designers, I've spoke with a lot of people that are in different places here. When you're talking about your role, talk about the role you want to get. So like even if on the project you were like, oh yeah, you know, I really was more in the research role in this project, you still probably contributed to some of the design. What are the design things you did? Even if you supported the design, you can say, hey, you know what? I was one of the designers on this project. I supported the design in these ways. I helped with sketches and wireframing. I also did the research. Tell me you were a designer on the project. Don't tell me you're a researcher, because then I think, oh, you want to be a researcher. You know, like even if that was your primary role on the project, this comes down to selling yourself.
Designer, just call yourself. You got to kind of call yourself a designer, and it's
fake it till you make it.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. It's a very fake it till you make it sort of mentality, and it's like, and the same thing I think with the like saying we versus I. That's a weird muscle you just got to train. And it's like when I went through my most recent round of like interviews, I had to get myself back into doing that because it's just so in our nature, I think. And we're just like, it's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm just trained to say we instead of I if multiple people are involved. But it is a cultural thing. But that's what gets into
even when multiple people aren't involved. I feel like I normally fall into a trap of saying like we. It's like on a lot of projects, like I got this feedback all the time internally from like managers. They were like, "Oh, you did like 90% of this," and you said like we did it. I was like, "Yeah," because like they contributed a little bit to it, and I want to give everybody credit. Like I feel like that helped us get to the end goal. But he's like, "You did almost everything." He's like, "You're gonna have to learn how to talk about what you did if you even like for promotion." That's what my manager was talking about. But I'm sitting here like, I don't know if I'm ever going to do that. Cause I feel like if you're trying, like I guess there's like a time and a place to give credit to everyone. And there's a time and a place to say like what you did. And in the midst of an interview, it's a time and a place to say what you did.
Okay. That's it. That's really it. And so just to say, yeah, saying I is like, or actually no, saying we isn't bad when you are working with other people. And in fact, if you lay it out the right way, it conveys that you can work with other people and that you're
Right.
good on a team. And so, like, in my past projects I've talked about, it's like, oh, I sat down with the visual designer so we could come up with like final mocks. I put input in on the design part of it because we didn't have time to go through regular wireframes, and I did this. I told him this. I said we should move this here and do it this way, and he advised on like the visual aesthetics of it.
Right.
And we came up with mocks. Ta-da.
Right.
That's it.
That makes sense. And then that kind of shows how you work together and what you were doing and what they were doing, right?
Right.
That's a really good way to go about it, because that's one of the things we're measuring too, is like, how did you work on the team? And you are part of the team, but at the end of the day, this is really more about you. And there will be questions around like, how did you work with the team? What were the decisions that you had to make? How did you make decisions together? Those are the type of things that you're going to hear, as well as like the age old question in every interview is, what's one thing you would do differently if you were able to go back and do this? And then another one is, what is a design decision you would change if you were able to go back and do this? So if you prep for those kind of answers, it's normally pretty easy. And kind of what I was mentioning earlier around like, everyone wants to present the design they thought was like the best one or the vision. There's always a chance for that. Like, people always ask you, what would you do differently, or what is a decision you could have changed? You just say, hey, I had this other design. I think it was better. I didn't have time to test it, but this is what it did. Or you could even show it if you have it. There's a time and a place to show those things. So you don't have to do it in the presentation if you don't want either. But yeah, I think that's probably it for this topic. So once again, this is very lightweight. This is a really deep topic. There's tons of things here. So
we have to restrain ourselves some.
We have to restrain and constrain ourselves. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm sure
all the strains.
If you guys have any questions about this, or you want us to talk more about this, feel free to like leave anything in the comments. We'll respond to you and we'll get back to you quickly, or we'll have another topic about this, or maybe even have some of you guys on and ask us questions or things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Love to hear from you guys. And we got some other great topics headed your way soon.
So yeah, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Cameron.
I'm Kalen, and see y'all later.
We're out of here. We didn't even do any hip hop references this week.
Wow.
We missed the boat.
Damn.